UFC 331 has officially been announced. We're getting Joshua Van versus Alexandre Pantoja in the main event. And the co-main event, which is causing a big stir, we're getting Arman Tsarukyan versus Mauricio Ruffy. You remember, it had been long reported and speculated that we were going to get Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. In my opinion, now this is just speculation. I think we were going to get that fight, and the sadly tragic passing of Charles Oliveira's teammate Alan Nascimento most likely, in my opinion, caused Charles to pull out of that one, or we're getting Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje for the belt. But I do think it's a little bit more likely for that. So prayers out to Charles, prayers out to the entire Shoot the Box team. And then we got a bunch of other fun fights in here, like Moicano versus Brian Ortega, Pitbull versus Duo Choi is an interesting one. Cheeto Vera versus Charles Jourdain is a fight. Alonzo Menafield versus Iwo's fun one. Gable Stevenson, they found another shit heavyweight for him to fight. And then in the prelims, we got Tai Tuivasa, Robelos of Spain, that had been announced already. That's a fucking hilarious fight. Edmund versus Bruno Ferreira. Brendan Allen thinks he should get a title shot because he beat Edmund Shabazi, and even though he's going to war with him. Giga Chikadze, Joe Anderson Brito, Ozzy Diaz, Ryan Gandra, Michael Aswell, Ju Sang Yu. That's a pretty fun card. It's better than UFC 330, I'll say that. But let's go into some of these matchups. Let's talk about the main event of Alexandre Pantoja versus Joshua Van. The rematch, the long-awaited rematch. We've been waiting months for this to happen after the first fight ended fucking tragically with Pantoja breaking his arm, his shoulder, his elbow, his cock. I don't really know what happened to him in that first fight. But either way, we're finally getting this one. I'm so happy we're getting a flyweight main event because this division is fucking crazy. Joshua Van, killer. Pantoja, killer. Manel Cop, cheater, and gay probably. Kai Car France, gay. Loner Kavanaugh, Brandon Royval, Horiguchi, those are all the fucking boys. Asua Mabayev, he's pretty cool too. Charles Johnson's a little bit crafty. He chins you, but you become champion. Jose Ochoa, watch out for the name. Flyweight is a really fun division, and I'm so happy we're getting this main event. As for the main event, who do I think is going to win? I would pick Pantoja in the initial first fight. Obviously, you know, it played out how it played out. I've kind of leaned Joshua Van. After the Tyra fight, it gave me a lot of confidence that he could handle a high-level physical grappler, and he really did beat up Tatsuro Taira over the course of that fight. It was really beautiful, was able to stop takedowns, scramble very well, survive with Taira all over him. I do think there is a world where like Pantoja can get Joshua Van down consistently and kind of just sit in half guard, stall out a little bit, and just take rounds off control and maybe wins a boring fight. But I do think Joshua Van's style can be very effective against Pantoja because he's a much better boxer. He's a better overall striker. You know, Pantoja's going to be working leg kicks. The body kicks are nasty, kind of just blitzing forward, eating your punches. But I do think Joshua Van has the ability to make Pantoja pay on some of these reckless entries where he's just beating him up in the pocket, using his elbows, because Pantoja is reckless with these entries when he's just blitzing into you, marauding you down, ripping you with body kicks, and then taking you down. I think Joshua Van has the tools to be able to win this fight. I think I might be leaning Joshua Van here in a very fucking close fight. Listen, whoever wins this, there's no bad outcomes for the flyweight division. I think Van maybe is a little bit more of like, you want this guy to win just because he's younger and I think has a bit more of a exciting style than Pantoja. But it would be a sick story for Pantoja, who's like, I don't know, what is he, 100 years old now at this point in his career? And for him to come off this long layoff and come back and win this one, how fucking sick would that be if he was able to do that? And if Joshua Van wins, if he's able to beat Pantoja, Taira, and then beats a cop, we're talking about this guy's going to be the greatest flyweight of all time. Either way, this is a peak main event. I'm so happy we're getting Joshua Van versus Alexandre Pantoja finally. Also, about this main event, I'm just happy it's not the co-main also, because there were some rumors that we were going to get Charles versus Arman as the main event. I get to the bigger names, but we needed a fucking real title fight like this as the main event. And again, I'm really excited for this one. Let's talk about Arman versus Mauricio Ruffy, because this is another really kind of weird, wonky matchmaking, because Mauricio Ruffy is essentially getting a number one contender fight for beating Michael Chandler. And not like a good Michael Chandler. I'm talking like 100-year-old Michael Chandler who's running miles with bugs all covered on him because he wanted to simulate the outdoor environments of the White House event. You know what I mean? Nobody thought he was fucking beating fucking Mauricio Ruffy. Either way, Arman Tsarukyan versus Mauricio Ruffy. We all thought we were getting Charles. I wanted to see Charles versus Arman too. I would have picked Charles to beat him. I know I'm biased because Charles is my fucking profile picture, my favorite fighter. But Charles' improvements in the wrestling game and being better on the feet than Arman Tsarukyan, I think he would have beaten him and we would have got a title shot and then we would have beat Justin Gaethje. But that's a story for another day. We could still be getting Justin Gaethje. I think Arman Tsarukyan's going to win this one. This is a bad matchup for Ruffy because we're not that far removed from the BSD fight where BSD was just kind of making Ruffy very gun shy, not really throwing a lot of punches and just working with the grappling. Now, I do think it kind of gets, overstated, or that fight kind of gets overrated for BSD's performance in the sense that, like, Ruffy, I believe, did stop a couple takedowns and actually did reverse position a couple times to the ground. People are acting like it was like a Khabib level grappling performance from BSD, when in reality, like, it was very good performance. Yes, did his weird goofy grappling for some reason make Ruffy have no clue how to throw punches? Yeah, but it wasn't like some flawless performance. But I still think that fight in itself can kind of make you not want to pick Ruffy when you're facing a guy like Arman Tsarukyan, who has some of the best wrestling in all of the UFC. He's been working in RAF and hanging out with Nita Drama all this time since he fought Dan Hooker, getting a lot better at his wrestling, and it was already very good. And he's gotten better on the feet. His kicks have always been there. He was ripping body kicks against Dan Hooker. Also, just again, his boxing has continued to improve. I don't think he's some insane guy on the feet now. Ruffy, like, is there a path to victory for him in this? Yeah, he could just flash a left hook, knock out Arman Tsarukyan. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Arman deals with the range and just the length and the size of Ruffy. And also, Ruffy's been working with the Volkanovski camp. He's training with Volk now. His takedown defense, I assume, has continued to have gotten better. So there's that also against Arman Tsarukyan. I still don't really think he'd win this one. I think Arman, as soon as he gets him down, it's essentially wraps. The ground and pound's too elite. He's too elite on the ground for me to pick Ruffy in this one. And also, another point of Ruffy getting this fight. I thought him versus Holloway made a lot more sense based on the rankings. Even him versus, like, Charles, I guess, would have made a little bit more sense. Him fighting Arman Tsarukyan in essentially a number one contenders fight is kind of hilarious because he gets exposed by BSD and he's essentially just getting this off of it. Again, an 80-year-old Michael Chandler win. Now, two of his wins, like his notable wins, have aged pretty well. Like the Fiziev win has aged very well for him, with Fiziev knocking out Manuel Torres, and the Bobby Green win especially. He slams out Bobby Green with that spinning kick, and Bobby Green just, like, something clicked in him, and now he knocks out and beats everybody's ass. So maybe I'm underrating Ruffy, but I think this is going to be a tough one for him to deal with the high-level grappling of an Arman Tsarukyan and a guy who's continued to get better on the feet and is so good on the ground. I could just see Arman Tsarukyan winning this one by, like, round 2, round 3 TKO on the ground, and it's just ugly. Now, if Ruffy wins this one, I was thinking, I watched Bedtime's video, or like half of it, just before I started recording this because I was driving home, and he was saying, like, if Ruffy wins, is Justin Gaethje really gonna fight Ruffy? Like, I think he would just say fuck that and fight Charles Oliveira. So that's what I think on this. It'll be interesting to see what's next for Charles. I saw somebody comment, it was like, do you think there's a chance now that, like, Usman or Magomedov, when they bring him to the UFC, if they do, but signs are pointing to that, would they do him versus Charles or him versus Max Holloway? Still be some really interesting things, or is Charles just going to get the next fight against Justin Gaethje? That's what I want to happen. I'm trying to get the belt back. But either way, weird little wonky main event. I thought Arman, if anything, him versus Patty could have made more sense. You know what I mean? Because at least, like, Patty Pimblett just had a nasty win over BSD. Maybe he wants to make a quick turnaround. He rarely does because he eats, an entire McDonald's after every fight, but maybe he does, and him versus Patty would have been a really fun one. I think we'll just get Patty versus Elliot now, but it'll be interesting to see what the fuck do you do with Charles Oliveira. As for the rest of this card, because we'll recap the rest of this card, it is a pretty fun one. I mean, looking at the rest of the main card, like Pitbull versus Duo Choi is a weird one because Pitbull just, like, looked like absolute shit in his last fight against Aaron Pico, and Duo Choi, he's a crafty vet. He's been around for forever, has a ton of fight finishing ability, has a lot of great fights, just came out off an absolute war with Danny Santos, where he just really survived the early storm against him. And then it's Danny Santos, right? Not like Danny Silva. I think it's Danny. Yeah, Danny Silva's the guy with the embolism, right? Prayers out to Danny Silva. But he survived that war against Danny Santos and then broke him down, got a big finish in that third round. He's been around for forever. Anybody who knows me personally knows Duo Choi's always been, like, one of my mains in some of the older UFC games, like UFC 2 and 3. I think 2. I used him all the time. I used to kick Conor McGregor's ass with Duo Choi, but he's the boy. I love Duo Choi, and I think he's going to finish Pitbull. I'm done with Pitbull. He throws about 1 strike per minute. He has like a cooldown. If he throws 2 strikes, it's like he overheats and doesn't throw punches for 2 minutes. He kind of sucks, in my opinion. Pico, I thought, kind of beat up his chin a little bit. I think Duo Choi is going to finish against a tough Pitbull who maybe he crafts it up and wins this one over the course of 3 rounds. Moicano versus Brian Ortega. We knew this fight was happening. It's been scheduled before. I believe it was supposed to be on 326 as the co-main. I don't know why we keep trying to do Brian Ortega versus Nato Moicano. I don't really know who wants this fight. Brian Ortega, in my opinion, if he's going to move up the lightweight, just feed him to prospects that could kill him. I like Brian Ortega, and it's all part of the storyline, dude. But I don't really care for... Imagine he just, like, you know, fucking upsets Moicano. Like, I'm not picking Brian Ortega to beat Renato Moicano in 2026. He's mega washed at this point. I'll take Renato Moicano by, like, knockout. Brian Ortega is a corpse walking around. I know he's moving up in weight. Maybe he looks a little bit better. But there's no good vibes around Brian Ortega right now. Menefield versus Iwo is a parlay buster. You know, a lot of people are going to put on Iwo Barnowski in their parlays. I think people... At least if you watch MMA, you should be familiar with Alonzo Menefield just chinning prospect after prospect. Just destroyed Mingyang Zhang. I just blocked out their millennial pause. He destroyed Mingyang Zhang. Brutal fashion. Dominated him. Iwo, I believe, just beat one of the, whatever, junior Justin Tafa, whichever Tafa brother that is. And, you know, he's good. I know he has a judo background. We just haven't seen his grappling whatsoever. Menefield, though, is just so live against any of these prospects. He just seems to beat them all up. And yeah, that should be a fun one, though, too. Definitely a guaranteed finish in that. Gable versus Sean Sharaf. I mean, somehow they found a worse heavyweight than Elias Ellison. I don't know why. I remember rumors of Gable versus Tai. Not rumors, I started these. Gable versus Tai Tuivasa. That would have been kind of a fun one. But Tai Tuivasa we'll talk about a little bit more later in this video. No, Gable versus Sean Sharaf should be an easy finish for Gable. I'm happy that we're going to be getting Cheeto Vera out of the rankings. Charles Jourdain should beat him. Cheeto will fall down 2 rounds, and then, you know, he'll win the 3rd round and then think he got robbed. Again, Cheeto Vera will never do enough to win fights. I just want to get him out of the rankings. Let's get Charles Jourdain into the rankings. He's kind of fun. He's kind of exciting. Has a fun style. Has a fun personality. Let's get him in there, and let's look at some of these prelims. Tai Tuivasa versus Robelis of Spain. Hinted at it earlier. I'm actually pretty excited for this fight. I'm excited to see somebody get chin. I know a lot of people are going to pick Robelis of Spain, and I probably will too. But Tai Tuivasa, at least he doesn't have to face a grappler. I know he just fought Louis Sutherland, and he turned Louis Sutherland into a grappler, man. He probably gets chin in this one. Robelis of Spain has pretty crazy power, pretty crazy striking for heavyweight. Obviously coming off a win over the corpse of Junior Dos Santos. Tai Tuivasa's lost 7 in a row. The UFC just wants him to complete the Tony Ferguson 8 in a row and then possibly get the 9, and then they'll cut him. Shabazian versus Bruno Ferreira is a fight. You know, Bruno Ferreira looks like a guy who will slime everybody out, and then he never does enough. The idea of Bruno Ferreira is great until he just does absolutely nothing over the course of 3 rounds. I probably pick Shabazian here, but again, Bruno Ferreira can just beat with some bullshit. Giga Chikadze versus Joe Anderson Brito is kind of a funny one. I figured they would just feed Giga to, like, some prospects or something just to kind of get him to retire. But Joe Anderson Brito, I kind of figure will win this one. He just beat, was it Jordan Levitt or whoever he just subbed it? That was a pretty nice win. Casey O'Neal's back versus Eduardo Mora. That's a fight. Ryan Gandra, I mean, that's a guaranteed finish over Ozzy Diaz. Ryan Gandra has pretty sick power for middleweight. He'll slime him out. And then Michael Aswell versus, what is that, Zombie Jr., or is that the other South Korean guy? That'll also be a fight. But, you know, an interesting card nonetheless. Obviously, a lot's going to be said about we're not getting Arman versus Charles Oliveira, too. I wish we got that. Prayers out to the entire Shoot the Box family, because I figure that's probably the reason. Then maybe you're doing Charles versus Diego Lopez. Maybe that happens. Maybe we finally see that, even though that doesn't really do a lot for us. But Van versus Pantoja, a main event I'm so happy for, will not be complaining about. I do think this fight is kind of missing, like, another, what's it called? Like another high-level fight. Like, the feature fight cannot be Pitbull versus Duo Choi or Moicano versus Brian Ortega. Like, we need... Like, Morales, I know, is weighing in as the backup for 330. Get Morales on here. Feed him to an Amosov. Like, I just want to see Michael Morales fight, even though I like Yaroslav Amosov. You know what I mean? Amosov's live to win that one. I'm just saying. I just made that fight up. I have no sources or anything. But I want, like, another high-level, meaningful fight in a division in this one. I would have to think of some other ones, but you know what I mean. That's what I want to see. I just want to see one more high-level fight on this main card. I don't really need to see Gable Steveson versus Sean Sharaf anywhere near the main card. That fight kind of fucking blows. But whatever. It's an exciting card nonetheless. Better than UFC 330. Van versus Pantoja 2 is going to be sick. Tsarukyan versus Ruffy is a silly one. I don't really know what to think about that, but yeah. And I saw some people complaining Arman's got to fight another contender. He just fought Dan Hooker. You can't sit around and stream all day with Nina Drama and cheat on your wife and wrestle in RAF all the time and expect to get a title shot. The UFC doesn't like you already because you left you missed weight or got injured, we don't really know, and ruined an entire event. So that's what happens. But fun one nonetheless. Thank you all for watching. The doctor is signing off.